Greetings and welcome to the Richard Dolan Show, where every week we fight the good fight. I'm very happy to be here with you on KGRA Radio. And I have a guest that I'm rather excited to chat with. He and I actually met in person, maybe less than a year ago. His name is Alan Stivelman. He is from Spain. He is a filmmaker with a very interesting take on the UFO subject. The name of his documentary, which will be coming out this month, October 2019, we'll get into those details, is called Witness of Another World. And it's about a remarkable UFO encounter case that takes place in Argentina back in the 1970s. And Alan has gone through this process of preparing a very interesting documentary, which I have seen on this subject, and we're going to talk about it now. So, Alan, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure.
Hi, Richard. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm the one who's grateful for this opportunity because I saw your film about a week or two ago. I was able to get a screener of it. And, you know, I was expecting it to be a good film, but I wasn't expecting it to be something that actually was emotionally powerful. And in fact, your film really is. So I wonder if we can just maybe give an overview of, for you tell listeners what this film is about. The main individual, his name is Juan Perez, what his story is, and how you got into telling his story.
Well, this movie is about Juan's case. When he was 12 years old, he's a gaucho. He lives all of his life in the countryside. And at the age of 12, he witnesses a close encounter. He was like the main character of this encounter when he was, I think it was 6 a.m. in the morning, when he went to find the herd of the horses to start working on the field. He witnesses a fog, a big fog, very strange, very weird, not the usually fog in the morning. And then with his horse Cometa, he went through this fog and find out that there was a big ship that was waiting to him. So then he climbed a ladder, and up at this, he finds out like a big room with two beings, one tall being and another small one. The case was almost an hour and a half, but when I met Juan, when he was 48, when he started to tell me about his case, he started to cry a lot because he was like terrified. He started telling me, Alan, what I saw, it was not bad, but it was not good. The sensation was to be in front of something and someone who was traumatized with something that it was hard to explain for him. Because at the beginning of this project, my idea was to start a research and an investigation about what is behind the UFO phenomenon. What is this UFO phenomenon? We are talking about, or we are dealing with extraterrestrials. We are dealing with a phenomenon that it comes from another dimension. And Juan was the first person that I met that had an encounter with this world, with this supernatural world. And when I start shooting this film, I had to take like a path. I have like two sides. I have to choose between make a movie about the UFO phenomenon and try to find out what are the missing pieces of this phenomenon, or I have to choose the human aspect of the phenomenon, the witnesses. And what happened? Juan was really terrified. Juan was, for more than 40 years, he was suffering because of this encounter, because of this experience, because after the encounter, after this contact, Juan started to have premonition dreams, precognitive dreams. So I choose to help Juan. We all help Juan in a way, or trying to reach some shamans, to give answers to Juan, to bring Jacques Vallée into the movie.
Yeah, what's interesting about him, I have to agree, like his background, this is a very isolated, I don't want to say simple because no one's truly simple, but the life he lives in many ways, I think people who live in cities would consider this a very simple life. Like he's very isolated, right? And the thing that comes through is this trauma that he has clearly been living through since his encounter at the age of 12 back in 1978. And that's the thing that your film really shows. I'm sure you could not have expected this, was that in the process of making it, this film became a healing process for Juan Perez, didn't it?
Yes, indeed. It was a healing process. I think this movie is more like an inner journey into the healing process, very therapeutically, because everyone who was involved on this film, in a way or another, we healed something from ourselves. Probably we are not going to know what is the UFO phenomenon, but thanks to the question, thanks to the path that we took doing this film, plenty of us start to answering questions that we had for a long time.
Well, I think we want to get into that healing process eventually, but perhaps I wonder if we can just focus for now on his actual experience to the best that we can understand it. Now, he was the sole witness in his case, but there are other supporting features of this. And you mentioned Jacques Vallée, and yes. Vallée back at the time, back in the late 70s, apparently did investigate this case. Can we talk a little bit in more detail about what Juan experienced at the time? You also showed an early film clip or video clip of him as a boy at some kind of news conference, press conference or something, talking about this. So this was a case that received some publicity at the time. Can we just back up a little bit and revisit that? I believe the date was September 6th, 1978. Is that correct?
It's correct. Yes, it is correct.
So can we just revisit this a little bit and describe what exactly happened? You really portrayed it nicely in the film. You had an actor, a young man, sort of playing this part, and you recreated this so that the viewer really can get into the moment. But I wonder if you can describe it here.
Yes, of course. Well, the case was in September 6, 1978. It was early in the morning. Juan went to find the herd, to start working in the field, and then he saw a fog. After the fog, he saw a ship. A leather came out of the ship. He climbed up, and then he finds out that he was in the middle of a big room. He couldn't perceive if there was some corner. It was all white and some shadows. And then one of the most particular things of this case is that in front of him, it was like a mirror, or more like a mirror, it was like a panel, transparent, but he couldn't pass through. But there was,
right.
At his left, there was a small being, like 1 meter tall. He was cutting meat on a table. That specific action was very rare. He was cutting meat, but without blood. The meat hadn't blood. He's like this. It was more like similar to a robot. It was an organic being, but on the other side, at the right hand, at his right, there was a tall being like 3 meters, and this being was very organic. He has like a big suit on his body, like a helmet with a big, how do I say, I don't remember the name. It's something for breathing. It's like a hose.
Oh, like a hose.
Pipe. Yes, like a
Yes,
hose,
yes.
a big hose, in order to breathe. And after a while, his horse that was in the ground start to get mad. So Juan got really frightened because he needed to continue his work. So he left the ship, but he saw that his horse was really ill because he was kicking at the ladder. So after a while, the tall being came out of the ship, and one of the things that happened was that Juan was like injured by this tall being. He was like, his arm was grabbed by this tall being, and then, well, something happened, because if you read the original case, you will see that some other things happened, but what happened in the movie, we did a regression, and there was like a missing memory so the original case was that he was grabbed by this tall being and then was moved to the horse, and then he left this area and went to the house. But this tall being gave to him a glove, a big glove, but three lights, really little lights, came out.
A globe or a glove? I'm so sorry.
No, a globe.
A globe, yes. Okay. Right.
Yes, but it was took it by these three lights. But in the movie, you see other things, because when he was grabbed, it's spoiler alert, but something happened with him after the tall being grabbed his arm, because he went to another kind of space-time dimension. He started to like flying into the stars. I don't want to talk about much.
It's fine. Right.
But it was really curious because the case is not dramatic. So I tried to understand for several weeks while I was working with Juan, what was the traumatic part of this experience, because when you meet Juan, you will see a man that it was really suffering about this experience. But the tricky part, that Juan was not suffering for the case, for the encounter. Juan was suffering because of the consequences of the encounter, the premonition dreams. That was the hard part for him.
Yeah, I would really like to explore that with you. And I'll just say that again, when one sees this man on the video, on your film, he's very sympathetic, and it's so obvious that he has been deeply emotionally affected by this encounter. And in fact, even when you see the clips of him as a 12-year-old boy, that was obvious then as well. And it's kind of sad, actually, when you first encounter him in the film, because the impression that I got watching it was that this is someone who has been deeply traumatized by his experience, to the extent that he, because of this experience, ended up living as a recluse, really isolated from everyone. He lives in a very small home. It's not modern in any way. It's very dilapidated. He's by himself. And it just made me feel like something went wrong here in his life. And I wondered if it was because of this encounter. And Was that your sense as well? Did this encounter when he was 12
Yeah.
years old just make him go down a path that maybe he didn't want to go down?
Yes, because everyone after this experience, one couldn't tell to anyone what happened. It was really hard for him. So everyone started to say that he was mad, he was crazy. Uh,
Right.
so
Right.
every family, all of his relatives started saying that he was mad. All of his friends, all of the co-workers also. So that's the reason why he's like
Right.
step away from everyone and lived isolated. Because if you know Juan, if you meet Juan, you will see like a very friendly person. He likes to talk, he likes to express. He's not he doesn't want to live as a monk, isolated from the world. He has a special connection with the animals. He
Yeah.
heals animals. Plenty of people came to his house, gives very injured animals, and he healed them. He has some
Hmm.
powers. I don't know after the contact or pre the contact, but it's really it's really amazing to see the connection that Juan has with all the nature.
Well, it's interesting because, when we think of UFO encounters, most of the time it's by someone who is uh, in what we might call Western society, Western culture, not a more traditional society. And actually, in his case, he is really part of this traditional type of culture that we see around the world where you are part of a collective. You have a collective identity with your group. And so when this happens to you and it's not accepted, that would have to be a very hard thing for him to deal with. I mean, it's hard for anybody in any society, but I suspect it might even be harder for someone in the culture that he is from, where there would be a large number of people who would not accept the
Yeah,
truth of what happened to him. So, I mean, it actually it's very heartrending when you encounter him in the movie, and I'm sure it was for you in person when you got to know him.
it
So,
was really, yeah. But I think one of the, like, the, how do I say, the power that gave me to make this movie was his mother, because there are some mystery behind the family of Juan.
ah,
Because when I met his mother, I never told this anecdote, but I want to share it with you.
mhm.
The first time that I met his mother, way before that I made this film, 3 years before, the mother confessed to me that she suffered the same, but Juan didn't know that. When
Oh
she
my goodness.
was, yeah, she told me that she was kidnapped and was also, yeah, she suffered like a violation, and she was really scared about the idea of
Uh,
these beings with a kidnapped Juan.
So now, was she saying to you that she was taken by what, aliens, by non-humans, by other
Yeah,
beings? How did she describe them?
she described it the same as Juan, a tall being with a suit, with the, the, the same description as the tall guy.
Hmm. Wow, that's very interesting.
Yes, it was. So the reason why I did this film is to find out what happened with this family, what happened with
Yeah.
Juan. The main question. There was two questions that they were like the background of the film. One, if there is a relationship between UFO and the world after life, and the other one was, if there is a lineage with this type of
Yes.
encounters.
Right. Absolutely. Where in Argentina is this, incidentally? What part of that country?
The name is Venado Tuerto. It's in the center of Argentina, in the province of Santa Fe.
Oh, okay. I If you mentioned that in the film, I might have missed it. I wasn't quite
No, no,
sure.
no. It's not. No, no. It's not mentioned on
Ah,
purpose, because I try to hide those details.
I understand.
Just to
But it's
protect.
significant because from a research point of view, where it happened matters because you bring in Jacques Vallée, and Vallée pointed out, and this is not a case that I think many people had studied, but that there had been, did he say, 2 other cases in that area within a very short period of time that were quite similar, and that persuaded him that this was part of a pattern. So that I think he said within a kilometer or 2 from
less
where
than 2 kilometers. Yes, less than 2.
Yeah, so very, very close by. On the same day or within a day or 2, is that?
Yeah, the same week. It was on the same week, and I had the fortune to find those two other person. It was really hard. Yes, it was really hard to find them. But the main thing is that Juan was the only one who went to have this encounter. The other 2 ran away immediately.
In fact, as I recall, you did mention this in the film. Yeah. Well, there's one other thing about Juan's encounter that I don't think we mentioned, which was these balls of light.
Yeah,
that was a nice feature that you put in there.
Yeah, but this ball of light, they are not part of the movie because do you remember the end of the scene of the recreation? There is a meeting between Juan and his grandfather. That was a really missing memory. Juan didn't remember that. So after that encounter, like a dream encounter, there was another part of the encounter that was the balls, these small balls of light that came out of the big ship that took the globe out of him. And then Juan went to his house and started to cry and tell his father that there was a big ship, etc.
Right. Yeah. There was that whole element of it where, as you described it in the movie, he's 12 years old. He's going out in the morning to check on the herd. He's riding a horse. There's a fog, and there are these balls of light around him, moving around him. He goes further into the fog, encounters this craft, goes up the ladder after he ties his horse at the bottom of the ladder, and he encounters the beings. That was all interesting, and then comes down and then has these, I guess, visions of being with his grandfather, who was no longer alive. His grandfather had passed away by then, I believe.
Exactly. That's when he got really emotional in that part. So that's the reason why we cut it. We cut the regression after that encounter because we were we didn't want to push it more. It was more than 2 hours of regression, so it was really, really tough for him.
Now we're going to take a break in a moment, Alan, but it's an odd thing. There's 2 things I really would like to explore when we come back, which one is the odd, very personal nature of this encounter. Like, are we dealing with extraterrestrials? Or are we dealing with something more like what we would consider spiritual? Because there's elements of both of these in there, and it's very odd. And then the other thing I would love to get into are this healing process and his and the indigenous people. I guess their name was the Guarani.
Yeah,
and how they really helped him. But let's take a very, very quick break at the moment. We're just about at the midway point here. I am Richard Dolan here with filmmaker Alan Stivelman. Alan is the producer and creator of the movie Witness of Another World. By the way, I'm at your website, and it is simply witnessofanotherworld.com. And that film airs, Alan, when is it beginning? When is it available?
October 22nd.
October 22nd, 2019. Okay. Well, let's take a very quick break, and I will return with Alan Stivelman here on KGRA Radio. Be right back. I'm back here with Alan Stivelman, the producer of Witness of Another World. We're here on KGRA Radio. I am Richard Dolan. Alan, let's keep going here. So we were talking about the encounter of Juan Perez from back in 19. Are there any final thoughts you have about your experience making this movie, Alan?
Final thoughts. I hope I don't have it, but I think the journey it's about to begin, because I think it was the first step was making this movie, but the quest is not over. The other thing that happens after we did this movie, we make another regressions to Juan. We found out that it wasn't like one just isolated case, because when he was 40, another encounter happened. When he was 50, another one happened also. So,
Oh, wow.
yes, so the good thing, I have a final thought, yes, that as a researcher, or for researchers, it's not enough to go just and interview a witness one time and that's it. It's really important to keep going, because as my experience, plenty of these witnesses still like the first contact is just the beginning of their journey.
It's interesting that you say that, because I interviewed a researcher who has very different conclusions about the nature of these extraterrestrials, but he says the exact same thing, and that's Dr. David Jacobs, who in his abduction research said to me repeatedly, he said, look, if you're doing just one regression one time with someone, don't rely on that at all. He said it takes time. And most of the people who go through the regression process, they don't actually go through multiple sessions like that. And it just takes time. It doesn't happen right away.
Exactly. I agree with David Jacobs. Exactly.
Yeah. Except he has a very definite conclusion as to what is going on than I gathered from your film. I mean, he argues that we're dealing with basically a takeover by extraterrestrials, creation of a hybrid race.
Hybrids, yeah.
So
I know his work.
Yeah. But I do agree that we, when we deal with these types of cases, we need to do a deep dive, because there are layers that need to be uncovered, and I think that's the case with Juan Perez. Totally. Maybe you'll get I don't know if you're going to do any follow-up film on his subsequent experiences, but it would be interesting. You're probably going to be looking on other projects.
Yeah, because what the last experience that he had, his mind was blocked and we couldn't go further. So probably in a year or 2 years, we will make another regression, because after this regression, Juan gets really exhausted, very moving. So I try to make this happen, but in a long periods of time.
Well, Alan, this has been really nice. I've enjoyed chatting with you. I hope listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have. I found it to be very enlightening. Your movie is Witness of Another World. Thank you, Alan, for being here.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. Sorry for my English. Sometimes I get stuck, but thank you so much for your patience.
You were great.